Go.
Oh, hi. This is group two, and we are going to be answering the questions for module six on protecting the Black girl. The first question is, what are the educational experiences of Black girls?
Overall, what I got from the readings, that the educational experience of the Black girls was that they seemed to be kind of overall pushed out of the schools for discipline. When they were disciplined, it wasn't within the school. It was a lot of expulsions, suspensions, or getting involved with law enforcement, which just seemed to kind of push them out of the school instead of helping them within the school environment.
It also, to add on to that, I also noticed it mentioned that the students were, Black girls were often missing a rapport with the teachers. So they talked about how there was that misconnection and relationship building between those students and the teachers, and they were very quick to note that, and that they were often seen as more of a problem rather than someone who needed support within the classroom.
Adding on to that, the second article, Latina Urban Education, they also included experiences of Latinx and Latina students. So they mentioned that, categorizing Muslim, Latina, Black girls as high risk or low functioning, and kind of seeing these girls as categorizing them, however, like for what they're not what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of recognizing the failure of schools and institutions, again, looking at that individual as a failure or a risk or a disruption.
Okay. All right. Explain the school to prison pipeline and how Black girls are impacted.
So school to prison pipeline refers to a concept where schools are actually creating high disciplinary environments where students are being pushed out of the school setting and into juvenile detention or prison or jail, through getting kicked out of school, or also just being, disencouraged or made to feel like they're not a part of the school setting, and so, resulting in dropping out, and eventually, breaking the law or getting into situations because they don't have a formal education, so they can't incorporate into the, higher learning institutions of college or more of the white collar or blue collar careers that require education or training. So they're kind of forced to do illegal work to earn money to survive, which leads to prison or death.
And Morris, in the 2016 article, also was stating that a lot of times these Black girl students were also, because they were victims of such possible violence in their home, that they learned that survival tactic of fighting back, which and it's like you said, Lizzie, they're not being treated about who they are, but what they're doing in order to survive. And so the sassiness or the prone to violence is looked at as a discipline or a criminal act rather than a cry for help.
In the article, one of the statistics was saying that 34% of all girls who were subject to school-based arrest were students or male or female students of color, and I thought that was a large representation of them, or a large part of them. And it said 31% of girls in public schools who were referred to law enforcement as part of school. So, from 31 to 34% of in school that they're being referred to law enforcement from inside the school, not within the community, but within the school. And I thought that was just a huge proportion of them. Especially, just reading this article, it kind of opened up my eyes because we don't have a lot of school referrals to the justice system at where I'm located at and stuff. So it's just interesting to see from different communities and different places just the high percentage of that.
Yeah. I found it very eye-opening in the third article that they mentioned the Disturbing Schools law, which I had never heard of before, and that's a law where it states to interfere with or disturb in any way other students or teachers in schools is punishable by incarceration or fine. And for many families of color or families living in low income or poverty, paying a fine is not an option. So for those families, it is incarceration is the only option there. And I found that very disturbing as a teacher of mostly students of color and also just as someone who went to an urban school at myself. Students disrupting the class as teachers is frustrating, however, completely normal. Mm-hmm. They're teenagers. They're not always going to be engaged or, following social decorum that adults use in this, like a learning setting where they're just going to sit quietly no matter what. So they've literally been made illegal to disrupt a lesson, which is something been going on since the dawn of time. To me, felt like surprising and disturbing, and certainly an attack on youth of color who are painted in the media and the society as disruptors and as people that should be removed from the classroom to maintain the learning environment. Mm-hmm. So, as a law, instead of just a school rule, really surprised me and scared me a bit.
How is school discipline used to criminalize Black girls? And that goes along with, again, what you were saying, Lizzie, is just the disruption, we'll say normal disruption, and then it's turning a molehill into a mountain, and of course the teacher could possibly escalate the situation, and then of course the girl's reaction, and then of course they're turned into that criminal. And it was just a call for, hey, I want to notice this point, or this is just not right, or.
And there's the Morris article talked also about how they are not, there's not necessarily like a continuum of support or there wasn't a continuum of responses. So if a student was disruptive, there wasn't like a protocol or a continuum to go down or reference to how to support the student or how to handle them with discipline. It's just, for a lot of these girls, it's, it's you're a disruption, you're out of here. And, there's no alternatives to those disciplines. So, then if they do get incarcerated for whatever reason, there's not even the supports always within those systems to support them on how to handle their discipline or how to handle the behavior that they're exhibiting. So I thought that was interesting when they talked about how, we look at it as how do we get rid of them versus, yes, there's a no tolerance policy, but why then is it just these girls that are getting in trouble and then getting pushed out versus other students who are also disruptive or asking questions?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. What are the experiences of Black girls outside of school?
Both the panel discussion and the article mentions how Black girls are not only overly sexualized in their perception, but also victims of sexual violence and sexual exploitation. The article stated that 21.2% of Black girls are raped, 38.2% experience sexual violence, 90% of girls in the legal system have experienced physical and or sexual abuse. So those statistics are very alarming, and also there's that huge connection between a girl experiencing physical and or sexual violence and then instead of being seen as a victim or as a person who has experienced trauma, she is put into the criminal justice system and seen as a perpetrator herself. So, I mean, that's very scary. So these girls are just they're not receiving emotional support. They're not receiving protection that they need in the community. So definitely a very at-risk group that we need, if we are interacting with or disciplining or whatever the situation, we need to keep these experiences and these traumas in while doing so.
Okay. How can educators create safe spaces for Black girls in school?
There's a quote in the Morris article that really stuck out to me, and it was that safety cannot be implemented, it must be constructed. And I think that's really important, especially going off of what Lizzie was just saying, that, you know, we need to create a safe environment for these students, and we need to support them with that emotional behavior, with the emotional as well as the academic, but most importantly, that emotional space where they can feel comfortable asking for help, you know, emotionally or academically, where they feel like they're worth something and then they're valued also. You know, and another quote from there that kind of goes along with that, it said, in the vast majority of school districts, educators' fear of violence from students who show disruptive behaviors is greater than the actual violence, if any, students demonstrate. So, and going along with that also is, you know, as teachers, are we escalating the situation when really it's just a cry for help? And we really need to just support that.
And I think that's maybe where a lot of the teacher training comes in, to be trauma informed. I know I read a few books about it and stuff, and it's very eye opening. And within the Morse article, it says that sometimes causing others to read their behavior as aggressive and dangerous when it is not so. So, you know, we as teachers who aren't informed on trauma are reading it, you know, as aggression, and we're scared of what could happen possibly when we're just not trained correctly or know where the student and the actions are coming from.
Right. I think the most important thing is creating a safe space, and then using a lot of restorative justice techniques where is part of the disciplinary decision making, and they can recognize what has gone wrong and how to correct that. And then also, you know, really using that transformative intervention that's cause the behavior instead of just the behavior as an isolated bad choice.
And then the other safe place for these students, so to make sure the curriculum is unbiased and to be culturally diverse, gender inclusive, with the arts included in that.